So we all know that passive income is a great thing. It means you can have income while you're doing other things, maybe traveling the world or doing whatever. But here's the question: can you generate passive income while you're at college? Many of you know me as the real estate guy. I'm the one who's the ardent proponent of investing in real estate. But some of you I know are starting college, or you're in college and you're wondering, should I finish my college education first, or can I get started in investing in real estate now? Because you love the concept of having passive income. Well, I've been doing this thing for about 40 years now, but when I started out, I was in college. And back then, I didn't know if that was an option. I didn't know whether I could do either real estate or college, or whether maybe I could do both. But because I had an inkling that real estate might be good, I got started while I was still at college. And I'm going to show you what I did and show you how you can do it too. Right now, the highest paying jobs you can get when you graduate are like computer engineering or petroleum engineering. Interestingly, they're all engineering degrees, which is of course what I did. But that doesn't mean to say that they're the only high paying jobs. But the question is, can you do things while you're at college to generate passive income from real estate so that when you graduate, you may have the same kind of income? Now that's a tall order. And even if you only achieve half of it or a third of it, that's still pretty good. There's nothing like getting started in ways of generating passive income. So what I have for you today is a 5-year house hacking plan. If you follow this, you might be able to rival your salary within a relatively short period of time. So nowadays, you kids are spoiled. It is possible to buy a home with only 3% down if you live in it, of course. We never had that in my day. I had to figure out other ways of doing it. But in order for you to get, say, a $200,000 home with 3% down, you need to save up $6,000. Now, to many of you, that will sound like a lot of money. But if you scrimp and save and don't spend extravagant sums of money on all the things you don't need and that you'll regret having spent money on in a few years' time, let alone a few decades' time, get that $6,000 together. Have a side hustle, get an extra job, save something, sell something you don't need or use, and get that $6,000 together, because that could be your down payment on a home with a 3% down payment requirement and extraordinarily low interest rates. So of course you could buy a single freestanding family home, but you could also buy a duplex or perhaps a property with accommodation in the basement or a little unit up in the attic. And if you chose to live in that smaller unit and rent out the rest, you build up your cash flow, and therefore you can start to pay off your mortgage faster than otherwise would have been possible. So at its core, your home equity is what you own in the property. It's the current value less any debt you have on it. And if you can increase the value of your ownership in that property, if you increase your equity, that's your way to financial freedom. By having a tenant in your first property, here's what happens. You can see it graphically. We started off with a 3% down payment. That's your equity. The rest of it, 97%, was debt. But over time, what happens is, firstly, the value of that property increases, so the size of our circle gets larger. But because the tenant is paying rent, they're effectively paying down your mortgage, so that now your equity has gone to 20%. And that's exactly what I did with my first property. My first property was an old wooden villa divided into 2 units, and it had two more motel-style units out the back. So I actually had 4 tenants paying rent, 4 tenants paying down my mortgage, and that happened at an accelerated rate because I had 4 tenants. And I cannot describe to you, as a young student, the feeling of waking up in the morning, not only having rental income coming in every month that was more than my outgoings, but knowing that that mortgage, which to me at the time as a student seemed like this huge debt over my head, it was worth, many, many more times in my imagination of what I could be worth. And yet it was being paid down rapidly because I had 4 tenants. This is how you build up equity. Once your equity hits this magic 20% mark, you can get what's called a home equity line of credit. This is a bit like a revolving line of credit where you can borrow up to 80% of the current value of the home using a credit card even to pay for anything you want, and it's secured against the property. And you can also put money back in. So if you get a lump of $5,000 for whatever reason, instead of having it in an account and still paying interest on the entirety of your mortgage, you can put the $5,000 into the HELOC, and for the next day or until you take that $5,000 out again, you're not paying interest on it. So it's a large revolving line of credit. And what you can do is now take money out of that HELOC to use as a down payment on your next property. Now that you've bought your second property, you can actually start to pay things down faster because you're not living in this one as well. All of the rental income can go towards paying expenses and paying down the mortgage. And then after your second one, you might do it again and buy a third or maybe a fourth one. And then if you repeat it again and double it again, you'll end up with 8 properties. Now, I ended up with 8 properties by the time I finished university, and I must add there, I did spend an extraordinarily long time at university. I was there for 8 years. But the question is, often you're only limited by your imagination, so how many can you buy, or what did you do? Post in the comments. So everyone's paths are a little bit different, but the deals are out there. I have one student, a Vietnamese lady, who was studying at college. She had a car accident, was out of action for 8 months, but she kept on looking at property after property, and eventually she bought one property that had 3 residential units on it and 2 commercial units, and it was offering an astounding 36% cash-on-cash return. Now, I'm not suggesting you have to dismiss anything unless it's that good, but the great deals are out there, and that's why I always say the deal of the decade comes along about once a week. And if you don't believe that, if you think that by definition the deal of the decade comes along exactly every decade, then you won't find a great deal, and your belief that they don't exist will be validated. But if you do believe that the deal of the decade comes along about once a week, you'll go out there looking again with optimism, and you will find your deal. I know many of you are thinking, if you buy 1 house as a college student, or even 8, what are you going to do with them? How can you increase the value? Well, I've got the solution for that, because I've got a book called 101 Ways to Massively Increase the Value of Your Real Estate Without Spending Much Money. And you will not be able to read those books without coming up with dozens of things that you can do to your newly acquired property to increase the cash flow even more. It's a must read, and here's the deal. You can get a free copy just by clicking on the link below. Hey guys, thank you for watching, and please share ways that you've made money while you were at college, and check out my next video.